June 6th, 1944. Some days start like any other, you know? The sun comes up, birds sing. But not this day. This day began with the roar of engines and the crash of waves against steel. It was D-Day, a day that would live forever in the books of history. Thousands of young men, boys really, were crossing the English Channel. They were heading for the shores of Normandy, France. They were told they were liberating a continent from darkness. But as they got closer, all they could see was a wall of fire and steel waiting for them on those beaches. It was a sight to make even the bravest man's blood run cold. The air itself felt heavy, salt, smoke, fear. Higgins' boats, packed shoulder to shoulder with soldiers, pitched and rolled in the choppy gray waters. Many men were sick before they even saw the enemy. They clutched their rifles, hands slick with sweat, faces pale under their helmets. They looked at each other. Will I make it? The noise was a constant, deafening symphony of destruction. Artillery shells screamed overhead. MG-42 machine gun bursts rattled across the water. On the beaches, it was pure chaos. Men jumped from the ramps into water that was sometimes over their heads, weighed down by their gear. Those who made it to the sand found no safety. A storm of bullets and shrapnel cut them down. The water turned red. Grand plans drawn up far away seemed to fall apart in the first few minutes. Survival was measured in inches and seconds, a true test of the human spirit against impossible odds. This was the Crucible, a place where ordinary men were asked to do extraordinary things. They were fighting for their lives, for the men next to them, and for a future they might never see. Frank Perigore wasn't born a hero. He was just a boy from Esmont, Virginia, born into a world far removed from the battlefields of Europe. He grew up during the hard times of the Great Depression. Life was simple, but it wasn't easy. He learned the value of hard work and looking out for your neighbors. He was quiet, some said, a good listener, with a calm demeanor and a deep well of determination. He spent his youth working odd jobs, helping his family make ends meet, dreaming of a life a little bigger. When the call to serve came, Frank answered it. He joined the Army in 1941, before the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor. He found a new home in the 29th Infantry Division, a unit known for its grit. The training was brutal, designed to push a man past his limits. He learned to handle a rifle, march for miles, and follow orders without question. But more than that, he learned brotherhood. The men of Company K became his family. They shared everything, food and fears. Frank was a natural soldier, promoted to technical sergeant. His men looked up to him. He led by example, never asking his men to do something he wouldn't do himself. Leadership was about earning trust. That trust would be tested in ways none of them could imagine. As the 29th trained in England, the reality of the coming invasion settled in. Something big, something dangerous. Frank Perigore, the quiet boy from Virginia, was now a seasoned NCO, responsible for men's lives. He carried that weight with a seriousness beyond his years. He was a soldier, a leader, on the verge of stepping into a moment that would define many lives. Soft. The longest day was waiting, and the test would come on a stretch of sand the world would come to know as Omaha Beach. The mission for the 29th Infantry Division on D-Day was brutally simple and incredibly dangerous. They were to land on a stretch of sand codenamed Omaha Beach. Their objective: fight their way off the beach, push through fortified defenses, and seize the high ground. The town of Grand Camp Maisie was critical, securing the western flank and linking with paratroopers behind the lines. Company K, Frank Perigore's unit, would move inland to neutralize the positions stopping the advance. Trenches, pillboxes, machine gun nests, designed with interlocking fields of fire. A frontal assault was suicide. The landings were a disaster from the start. Strong currents pushed the landing craft off course. The bombardment failed to break defenses. Men landed in a perfectly preserved killing field. Furious, accurate fire tore through their ranks. The first waves suffered catastrophic losses. Taking the high ground seemed impossible before it even began. For Frank and his men, scattered, disorganized, pinned down by relentless fire. Carefully laid plans were gone, replaced by the brutal need to survive. The high ground became an untouchable fortress. The entire operation hung by a thread. The course of history would be decided not by generals with maps, but by individual soldiers on the ground. 2 days after the landings, the fight was far from over. The battle moved from beaches into dense Norman hedgerows. Frank and Company K advanced toward Grand Camp Maisie. Walls of earth and tangled vegetation turned every field into a fortress. The Germans were masters of this terrain. A hidden machine gun emplacement opened up with overwhelming force. Pinned down, exposed. Any movement drew fresh bursts of fire. Men were hit. Panic set in. The company was cut off. Every flank attempt shredded. In that moment of chaos, with his men dying around him, something inside Technical Sergeant Frank Perigori snapped, or clicked into place. He saw an unwinnable fight if they kept playing by the rules. Waiting for orders or a better plan would get them all killed. He looked at his men, saw the fear, and made a decision. It defied logic, training, and self-preservation. He decided to act, alone. He wasn't thinking about medals or glory. He was thinking about his men. He crawled toward the source of the gunfire, the sound of the dragon's roar. Instinct screamed, "Stay down." But a leader's instinct pushed him forward. From a rise he saw it. A long, expertly concealed trench with a powerful machine gun crew. A frontal assault was suicide. He chose something bolder. He took a breath, checked his M1, fixed his bayonet. That click was a commitment. He rose, a lone figure, and began to run. He ran with purpose, weaving and dodging, terrain as his ally. As he closed, he threw grenades with precision into the trench line. The blasts sowed chaos, momentarily silencing the gun. He leaped in, bayonet forward, into brutal close-quarters combat, a whirlwind of controlled violence, bayonet and rifle clearing the trench one section at a time. Panic spread. They believed they were being swarmed by many. He neutralized the gun crew, pressed along the trench using captured grenades to flush out more men. Inspired, Company K rose, charged, laid covering fire, and poured into the position. The stalemate broke into a decisive victory. The silence after the fight was more deafening than the gunfire. They stared at the trench and at the prisoners. They looked at Frank Perigori, torn, stained, alive. He had done the impossible. Relief mixed with sorrow. Even in victory, there is sorrow. The path was open, thanks to one man. His feet spread like wildfire. Commanders were astonished. He was recommended for the nation's highest award for valor, the Medal of Honor. The evidence lay in the captured position, the dozens of prisoners, and every man's testimony. Receiving the Medal of Honor is the greatest tribute a nation can bestow on a soldier. It signifies bravery few can comprehend, but it can be a heavy weight. Just 6 days later, on June 14, 1944, Frank Perigori was killed in action. He never knew. The medal was presented to his family. Quiet dignity, profound sadness. He lies today under a simple white cross among thousands of brothers in arms, on soil he helped liberate. The toll of combat is immense. Men like Frank rarely see themselves as heroes. They did what had to be done. His story is more than one battle. It's a cornerstone of military ethics and leadership training. A masterclass in initiative, courage, and taking responsibility. Leadership isn't rank, it's action. Recognize the moment, step into the breach. Plans can fail, technology can be overcome, courage and determination can triumph. Bravery, sacrifice, quiet humility, these speak to the best of the human spirit. A quiet boy from Virginia became a giant in France. One person's actions can ripple outward and change the world. His legacy is forged in the fire of a Normandy hedgerow, a timeless light for all who serve.